My nephew is getting married in about a month and a half, and it's down in Texas, a long ways away from where I live. And with COVID and all the crazy things that have been going on in the nation, I was tempted to not go. But then I got talking to another relative about it and remembered something I wrote. It's in my Family Fuzz book a number of years ago when another relative got married. It's kind of a fun little humorous presentation, but yeah, with a good message, I think. So here it is. It's called Why Do People Cry at Weddings? It was a beautiful wedding. The young woman coming down the aisle on her father's arm was my cousin. I felt a tear in my eye. My 2-year-old daughter was also impressed. She smiled up at me as she whispered loudly, "She's pretty. I want a dress like that." Feeling the need to hug her, I picked her up. "Shh," I whispered as I held her tightly, fighting back the tears in my eyes. All too soon you will be a young bride, and my cousin's daughter will be watching you, I thought to myself. I wiped a tear from my nose. Something about weddings make me cry. This one did especially, maybe because there hadn't been a wedding in my family for over 5 years. Or maybe it was because I was thinking about how the bride of today had been a little girl of 6 when we had married 15 years before. I don't feel that old, I thought as I wiped my eyes. The groom took his soon-to-be wife's arm as she started to kneel. He helped her first and then knelt himself. He'll be a considerate husband, I prophesied to myself. I took a third Kleenex from my purse. Maybe crying at wedding comes from the caring and love that they represent. It's all so touching, I sobbed. I looked over at my son. I wondered, will he be so caring and considerate a groom? I can't imagine him a man. He seems so little and helpless, so vulnerable. How do you ever let them go? I was lamenting to myself when I noticed my son was about to pounce on his sister. Maybe it won't be so difficult, I thought as I grabbed his neck. Maybe it isn't letting our children go that makes me feel sentimental at weddings. I chuckled to myself. The couple turned, now husband and wife, as the minister announced them to the gathering. A man in front of me started to applaud, but stopped before his hands met. Afterwards, he whispered, "I think we should applaud at weddings. They aren't funerals." I agreed and decided that must be the reason people cry at weddings. It's a joyous event celebrating not only the joining of a man and a woman, but the continuation of family, a celebration of loving and life continuing. It made me cry just to think of it. As we finished going through the receiving line, my husband looked at my red eyes and laughed. He was referring to the bride, cried the whole time. You can sure tell she's related to you. So what? I replied over my shoulder. There's nothing wrong with being sentimental. I felt a special connection to the young bride. On the way home, I was quiet. I was thinking about the wedding. My mind was full of thoughts about marriage, how it represents commitment, caring, concern, and consideration of other people. It makes you feel connected to others through love and tradition. It is about continuity and letting go. It is the basis of all family communication and growth. My head was filled with more ideas than I could remember. I have to write them all down, I thought. I started crying again. My husband looked over at me. "Why are you crying now?" he asked. I poured out my inspiring ideas and feelings. On and on I went with flowery descriptions of the value of marriage now and forever. I looked at my husband as the lights of an oncoming car lit up his face. I had expected to see absolute joy and enthusiasm. Instead, his look was one of pained disbelief and total disdain. "Where do you come up with this stuff?" he asked. Sometimes marriage isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe that's why people cry at weddings. That's all for tonight. Have a good one. Bye from mean old Granny, for goodness sakes.